Against? That's carried. Thank you. Great. So just noting, hello.
Item 11. Are you going to be doing that next?
Yeah, so we agreed, unless Yanni wants to change it, I just agreed with Celeste, she had to go away.
Yeah, she's not here.
They want to be here for the insurance one, the wastewater treatment plant. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I mentioned it while you're out. Yeah. Okay, so Lynette, you're probably back up again, actually. I'll just move it pro forma and Phil will second it, and then if people have got amendments, we'll just work through them. So it's probably the easiest way. So welcome to the table again.
So I suggest I'll do a quick introduction, and also there have been a number of questions on this report over the last couple of days, so I'll attempt to answer some of them as we roll through. So we are talking about the Transport Choices program. We've talked about that on a number of occasions. It's otherwise been called the SURF program, the Climate Emergency Response Fund. But I will try and refer to it as Transport Choices all the way through this report. There was a hearing. We had tight deadlines to work to, and there was a hearing in September last year, and a report on the 21st of September came to council with recommendations for all of the 10 projects that were included under the Transport Choices broader banner. Upon getting home and opening our emails after that hearing, we got the message that we needed to pause all works. All works were paused on that while funding decisions were made. And on the 20th December, a letter came from the Minister advising that all funding had been cut for the program. All funding that had been agreed, all Schedule 1s and any Schedule 2s that had been signed would be honoured, but that anything else was to stop. We've worked through, the team here at Council have worked through with the team at Waka Kotahi to understand the status of all of the projects. We have Schedule 1s for all 10, and those costs are included in your report. And we had 3 that we had Schedule 2s on, or 3 parts of projects. That was the school safety in Linwood, the Ngāpunawai connection within the Little River Connections project, and we had a Schedule 2 signed to purchase infrastructure for the bus stops. So we are buying seats, shelters, and all that sort of hard stuff. So as I said, the Schedule 1s and the Schedule 2s will be honoured, but everything else was to stop. So we looked at the program of work that we had, and as staff, and have provided you, we think there's 3 courses of action. Some projects will continue. Some could return to craft. Now I'll come back to that. And some could be projects in their own right as part of a future annual plan or long-term plan. Part of the challenge with moving forward with a project is that it hasn't been through standard Waka Kotahi approval processes, and as such, if we want to move forward in a project in its own right, we would have to backtrack and do that before we started any further work in order to ensure that we got Waka Kotahi subsidy. But we have got designs completed for all of the work that was done. I would like to take a wee moment to acknowledge the team that worked on it. They delivered a vast amount of work in a very short period, and it is really good work. But they were incredibly focused on doing that and not on doing other work, BAU work that we had. So the finances shown in section 7 of this report list the Schedule 1 costs and the Schedule 2 costs that we've had agreed and what our contribution is. It does not list the budget that may be listed in the LTP. There's also a note in this to look to restart the investigation design, and work on 7 of the projects that were deferred in order to undertake the Transport Choices work. These ones we believe are the best way of getting it set up for either the next annual plan or the next long-term plan. From a craft perspective, there were a number of projects that were set up that had been discussed under craft that were then approved as projects under transport choices. That is outlined in both of the diagrams in your report under 3.2 and under 5.2. There was the Richmond Greenway that was extended. So the Transport Choices project was connecting the Greenway that was going through the Richmond area to the city. So that was the Transport Choices project. There were 3 in Linwood, in the Linwood area. The Te Aratai cycle connection, the slow speed neighbourhood in Linwood, and the Linwood road improvements. We made the best decisions that we made, and we provided the advice to you at the time to make those decisions moving forward. The world has changed. We are looking to make another decision with this report. So we are proposing that some of the projects are returned to the community boards to consider whether they deliver them under CRAF or not. Richmond Greenway and the Linwood roads, but some of the other projects like Te Aratai Cycleway, we believe are projects in their own right that should be put forward, if you agree, as part of an annual plan process. So that's the proposal that's through today. There was a question about a workshop. The workshop was proposed around the time that we knew that the funding was being going to be reduced. We thought it was going to be reduced. The aim of that workshop was to prioritise the list so that we could move forward without having to come back to council. That then changed when everything got cut. That's explained in section 5.71 of your report. So we haven't done a workshop for this. We have put up a proposal. There's also been conversations about why this is not in the LTP. The Transport Choices program was originally planned to be delivered by the 30th of June this year. We would have been knees deep in construction if we hadn't had these changes. Therefore, it's not part of the long-term plan. I understand that these changes have changed that, but the processes haven't aligned, and we are where we are, and we're with you today with this decision. So just to summarise the proposal that is put forward, we are proposing that that you acknowledge that there are 4 projects that are going to continue. There's the school safety in Linwood, the infrastructure for the buses we will continue and get, and the cycle connections for Ngāpunawae. Those are the ones that had the Schedule 2 signed. The slow speed neighbourhoods in Linwood will be delivered through the minor safety program with the other agreed slow speed neighbourhoods that we had. And as per the notice of motion, Linwood Village will continue and is in fact under construction. The proposal is that the Richmond Greenway project and the Linwood roading projects go back to the community boards for discussion and prioritisation. And that 4 projects, the Westmoreland Cycleway, the Te Aratai cycle connections, the remaining Little River connections of Simeon and in my one it reads Nash, but it should read Aidenfield. So we have tweaked that from the agenda originally. And the Improving Bromley Roads projects are put forward as projects in an annual plan, in a future annual plan or long-term plan process.
Thank you, that's really clear. I think Sarah had a question first, and then we'll just go around if people have got them.
Yeah, thank you. So we did have some information that came back. So I'd put originally forward an amendment to the LTP to include the Te Aratai connection, and withdrew that based on the advice that we were going to have a workshop just after the sign off of the LTP to do the reprioritisation process. And that was advice that I was given through that LTP process rather than when it was cancelled. And I'm just wondering, yeah.
I apologise.
Yeah.
All I can do is apologise for that and the confusion of that advice.
Because I know that the when we first made the decision, people were concerned that we hadn't been able to look at both lists and reprioritise kind of across them to see which projects would be the best ones to go forward, even though there was central government funding. So that would have been quite helpful. So if council considered adding the Te Aratai cycle connection to year 2 of the LTP, would that give enough time to do the work applying for funding for Waka Kotahi?
Year enough.
Yeah, near enough. Yeah, we need.
So, I mean, we couldn't. If we put it in year 1, we wouldn't be able to have enough time to apply for funding.
If you put it in year 1, you'd need to consider that you wouldn't get Waka Kotahi funding.
And my understanding is that it's around 3.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah. So my calculations are then that if we fully funded it ourselves in year 1, it would be a 0.037 with $94 million as 1% of capital. But if we got the Waka Kotahi funding, it'd be 0.018% impact on rates. So does that sound... I don't know. Anyway, with $94 million, which is the LTP number for 1% of on rates for capital. So both ways they're really small impact. Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if that sounded about right, maybe to Russell.
We don't.
It is $94 million for 1% though, isn't it?
Correct. Absolutely, Mr. Chair. That is the calculation for capital for borrowing.
And so 3.5 million would be a very small amount.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it does add to our overall debt.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, when we come to it, I'm going to move an amendment that council consider adding the Te Aratai cycle connection to year 2 of the LTP in deliberations and request Waka Kotahi co-funding. So that, yeah, I sent it, so that'll be that amendment.
Cool.
I'd like to put.
Yeah, no, good as well. So other questions? Melanie and then Yanni.
For the 7 replacement projects, ones that were deferred, when were they planned or scheduled to be restarted if we weren't going through this process now? What years were they supposed to be coming in?
They're in the LTP for the next financial year.
So, okay.
They were deferred by 1 year.
They were supposed to be next year anyway.
Yeah, when we worked out which projects we should recommend, we looked at whether they're in the LTP and towards the front. So the ones that are there are all got funding in the draft LTP in the first year.
So this decision today, if it was to pass, would it mean that the work starts on them tomorrow rather than waiting until July? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
So some funding would be used this year, and I imagine it would be ongoing until...
Yeah.
Okay. And the other question, or 2 other questions I've got. So one is for the Transport Choices projects, do I recall correctly that we did end up getting an extra year extension at one point to give us a whole nother year to complete them? Is that right?
That was the construction. We still had to get the Schedule 2 signed by quite a tight deadline. So we were ready to go. So yes, our construction may have fallen over. There would have been an overlap in time of the Transport Choices projects being constructed plus the projects.
Yeah.
But that would have been dealt with through a carry forward process. All of the budget is sitting in this financial year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then my last question is, with the deputation that we had from Bromwyn about the stepwise construction idea, what comments do you have on that?
We can't start building anything unless there's a project there to build it. So you have to commit to building it. So we need to have a project in the program in order to start building. In order to do it, but there are other ways we could look at the safety. But if you want to build Te Aratai, a cycle connection between those 2 cycleways along that road, then we need to have
So I guess the answer that if I was Bronwyn, I'd want to know is that you would obviously have to put the whole project in, and it is cheaper to construct them all at once.
Yes.
But it is theoretically possible to spread the money out over time, is it, to construct it piecemeal, even if you've got the whole project sort of all ready to go?
Theoretically, what she suggested is possible. It would be more expensive to build, that's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just flag, and we'll move through the questions. We're just getting legal advice on your amendment, just in terms of whether we can make a submission to ourselves on the LTP, because we've already agreed on it. Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. It's a consider during deliberations.
So it's just a note,
yeah,
just a
and-
note rather than include in the LTP.
Yeah, well, the wording isn't included. It's consider including it in year 2 during deliberations.
Yeah.
Do that pretty
So we would just we're just getting some advice from the team.
Yeah, so it would be
Yeah.
no, it's a consider. So it's similar to, so for example,
I'm just flagging it. We're getting Ron's coming down because it's the team are just checking it, and I think
Sorry,
unless
apologies, Chair. I mean, that's a no. You
So-
can't submit to yourself. You are the decision maker.
it's not. It doesn't ask to make a submission. Can I just clarify though? If a report came to us, so for example, the Port Hills recovery plan before the LTP decision, which it did after the last fires, it came before the annual plan at the time. If there were recommendations for things that needed funding, would we not be able to do that because they wouldn't be in the LTP?
You would consider them at the time that you were actually making a final decision on the LTP, because you would consider, as well as the draft submission, as well as the draft submission you'd put out and the draft proposal you'd put out, the submissions and other factors that were beyond your control, you can actually certainly weave them into your consideration.
That's right.
No one would expect
so-
you to just ignore something that had happened.
Yeah, so in a similar vein, so let me just explain. If the Port Hills report said we'd like you to consider putting money in the LTP, and you'd consider that in the deliberations of the LTP, that is no different for me saying let's consider Te Aratai as part of the LTP.
So as you see, one's an emergency response, and actually you are required to respond to emergency events you couldn't avoid, versus another report that is not an emergency.
Yeah.
But we'll
So maybe just we don't have to solve it now. We're going to get the lawyers to have a look, but just the wording might not be correct because it's not actually capable of being put. So I just don't want to have to rule it out. But at the moment, it's not written the right way. So if we could.
Yeah,
work on
if
that.
there's a way to do that, that's fine. Otherwise, I will foreshadow a procedural motion to let that lie on the table so that we can have a reprioritisation workshop for both lists of projects.
Well, you can put that now, can you? It's proceed. Well, you'll have to work on the wording. I mean, I'm assuming you did this wording. Yeah. That's fine if you work with them. That's great.
Jane's got her hand up.
Jane.
Could I just add to the discussion that we're expecting the GPS from the incoming government in March, so it would be sensible, I suggest, to wait until we get that before we go doing too much work on the reprioritisation of cycleways when we may get a different direction coming centrally from central government. And given the timing, in the next 4 weeks we would expect that. So I just think councillors should be aware of that.
to add to that, that is something that we have flagged that we would need to take into consideration.
In that case, I will move a procedural motion that the report lie on the table in order to enable a reprioritisation workshop and the outcome of the government GPS to be taken into consideration.
Okay, so can I get advice on how we put that?
On the impact of that.
Yeah.
No,
So who,
just needs a
who
second
would-
and a vote.
Yanni, you want to second that?
No, well, can I just ask a question first? Which
Well, hang on.
just to
So,
help.
so let's just stop. So, what would be really good? Have you got your microphone on?
It's
there?
a very generic question.
No. Yanni, I've said stop. So just wait. So we've got a procedural motion that's been moved by Sarah to leave it laying on the table. What I'd quite like is legal advice on how that can be put and if there's an implication to it.
Sorry, apologies. I'm just looking to the
So she'll need a seconder.
advisor
She'll need a seconder.
to, and then there is no debate.
Okay, so Melanie's, okay, that's fine. Sarah's moved it, Melanie seconded it. So we put that to the vote, which we'll just do by division.
Questions
We-
asked
it's
first before
procedural
we go.
motion.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to get the question
So everyone
asked
stop.
first.
So believe it or not, I'm chairing the meeting, so we're all going to sit in silence. We're going to sit in silence, and we're going to do a division. I'll obviously be voting no, but we're going to be doing a division. So could you go up there and do it on the?
So we're not allowed to ask any questions.
No,
Is
it's
that
procedural motion.
Can I just clarify, point of order? I think that standing orders preclude a debate on a procedural motion, but they don't necessarily preclude advice.
I'm looking at my legal boffins.
Are you after advice on the procedural motion?
So can I just clarify what you're trying to achieve?
You're trying to achieve the ability to consider this in your final LTP deliberations. Is that correct?
What I'm ultimately trying to achieve is to include the Te Aratai cycleway connection in year 2 of the LTP. That means, because we can't do it straight away, that I would like it just considered as part of our deliberations for inclusion in year 2. But given that we've just had advice that we can't, that it's not possible to put that motion, what I think we should do then is reprioritise all of the projects and look at potentially councillive or any of those for a substitution instead.
So when do you want you at the end of when you're deliberating? So your LTP's gone out to consultation, you've got feedback, and you've taken into account the government policy change and other things, and you're making your final decisions.
Yeah. And my original motion was just for us to consider it as part of the deliberations.
You need a resolution for that.
It's a statement of intent basically from council that it's something it's going to look at.
So then I guess the other question, and it's good, good we're doing it publicly.
Yeah.
In terms of how long do you want this lying on the table for?
Until we've had the workshop and the GPS.
So
It's just what you do.
In time to inform the long-term plan as the final.
So so we wouldn't just put amendments up to this.
Well, I wanted to put an amendment up, but I was told that I wasn't able to.
No, amendments to the changes. So you can change stuff within this if you wanted to not instruct them to do something or stop it. But your amendment was around submitting something into an LTP we signed off yesterday. So, yeah.
On submitting, on considering.
But
There's
the
a
advice
difference.
is very clear, isn't it? Unless I'm missing something, which I could be, yeah. Okay, Yanni's got a question. Is it on the procedural motion? And then we'll and we've got a mover and a seconder, so then we will put that to the vote. So Yanni, what is your question? And is it in the scope of the procedural motion?
The memo that's going to community board tomorrow says that the delivery is proposed to be funded independently in the 2034 long-term plan. So I'm just very confused about this whole process. But the thing I wanted to check in terms of the procedural motion is, given that we haven't finalised the consultation document, could we ask a question in the consultation document around these projects?
No, we've already approved the consultation.
Because, can I ask why not?
So what we're going to do is
wouldn't that address
stop,
the
Yanni's,
concern?
Yanni, so we're going to stop. So what I'm going to do is adjourn for 5 minutes because I'd like to take advice to make sure that the procedural motion can be put. So let's stop for 5, and can the legal team